Thursday, everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. And it is, in fact, National Podcast Day, but we're not here to romanticize our position in the sports media world. We're here to talk about Week 4 of NFL football. Some of us had better days than others. Actually, I think we all had bad days. Browns, Panthers, Packers.
But some of us have like less stock in how our NFL team does, so it's really not that big of a deal.
So true. But before we get into our Week 4 analysis, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday night?
I'm not so great. The Cincinnati Bearcats lost in horrifying fashion in a way that was giving me flashbacks to the 2022 Georgia-Ohio State game, where Ohio State was down 1 and they got into field goal range, and once it was like a 50-yarder that they could settle for, they immediately just like stopped trying to progress the ball. Cincinnati did the exact same thing. Threw for 400 yards in this game, right? Look, we're absolutely gashing them. And then they get down to like the 33 or whatever. One timeout, 37 seconds left. They just run up the middle and then call it. and then kick a 50-yarder and miss it, and that's the game. So they've lost 2 close, heartbreaking games this year, both off of missed field goals. So that sucked. And then the Panthers lost on top of that, which also sucks. So if National Podcast Day could bring forth a new era of normalizing having a sports podcast, it would make it all the better, but that's out of my hands, and it's honestly in the listener's hands.
I feel like the most modern take is that podcast equipment needs to be more expensive, so I don't know if we're going to be getting into that new era anytime soon, Matt.
Probably not. Hornets did not lose. I forgot about honestly, like it feels like it's been a day ago or 2 days. Well, it has been, but it feels like a long day because I was so locked in on football. An insane trade. I'm still creating my feelings about it, if I'm being completely honest. Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. My question is that I think straight up, like, the idea here is that it makes the Wolves more flexible long term. I got to see what that flexibility actually brings in. But I understand it from getting off of Karl Anthony Towns' contract.
I understand it. I liked that they got the Pistons pick in that deal.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a phony Pistons pick where it converts to multiple seconds unless the Pistons make the playoffs like relatively soon.
Well, then I like they got White Dante.
He's a player. He's nice. I don't know. I just wonder if like you get into a playoff series with them and like if Randall is playing bad, that's just going to cause, like, can they win the finals if Randall does not play significantly better, does not play like, way differently than how he's played in the playoffs previously? I think the answer is like, no, they can't. Like, they need him to take a ridiculous step. And that was one of the big things weighing down the Knicks. Now you've made it your problem. And I understand that A, maybe, he can only go up, and B, Karl Anthony Towns wasn't like the most consistent guy ever, albeit in a completely different category. And C, you're thinking past this year, but you still were thinking about being one of the top competitors in the NBA. Windows are not open that long. Who knows how long Gobert is going to be, who he is. I'm not saying he's had some major fall off, but he's getting towards the age where, it's around the corner. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
Yep. I think it is a bit of a weird one for both sides. I feel like Tibbs reuniting with Cat kind of makes you raise an eyebrow. They didn't work super well before. But at the same time, I don't know. He is an all-star. I'll look more into it. I've been more on the football grind. I haven't given it too much mental
Matt,
energy.
could you put this into NFL terms for me?
Off the top of my head, nope. I'm going to be completely real with you. I'm trying to think. It's just like NBA trades are so different from NFL trades. Yeah. The contracts are more locked in a way that you would never get off of a contract like Karl Anthony Towns in the NFL. It just doesn't exist like that. I'm sure somebody can invent something better than me with time to think about it, but no.
Let us know in the comments.
I'm doing pretty well.
You've turned into Matt, man.
I have turned into Matt. I haven't had too much happen recently. I've been on my grind. I feel like watching film, so I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't really done much. I turned my desk around.
That's big. That's not a nothing change. I mean, it creates a new era for you personally when you do something like that. What inspired that change?
Well, I woke up and my girlfriend had rearranged the room.
Right.
is what inspired the change.
Would you say, I mean, she's within earshot, so like you would say it's a positive, but like would you say it's an improvement, or are you still adjusting?
I would say it's an improvement. I think that every change she makes to the apartment is a fair and honest one that makes life better.
Right.
Oh, yes.
That's so real.
She can do no wrong when it comes to rearranging the apartment, definitely.
Well, I mean, for everyone that has a girlfriend, you all know that your girlfriend can do no wrong in general.
That's right. Well, I'm sure that she can, but she just never has, like.
That's true. Right.
She's on a hell of a streak.
She is.
She might be capable of wrongdoing, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened. Like maybe before we met, she messed up, but not since
now
I've known her.
She's perfect.
But yeah.
All right, man. Well, let's talk about some NFL football. I think we have to start with Thursday night, Cowboys Giants, and my like immediate takeaway coming into the game, I was like, dude, the Cowboys look really rough. Like their defense is a complete disaster, and then I was like, but it's the Giants. Like they should win, and then they just looked horrible. And the
Cowboys look bad.
Like they look so bad, and they ended up winning the game. But I don't feel better coming out of that game than I did going into it, especially with all the injuries they have. It just I'm struggling to see the vision with this team. They're supposed to be one of the top contenders in the NFC, and I think they'll be lucky to make the playoffs at all at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they would have lost this game if Daniel Jones had not put up an absolute stinker. There's a lot of guys who get the moniker of like the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. It probably actually is Daniel Jones, if not bottom,
after
3.
week 4, I would agree.
I mean, this was brutally bad. Obviously, you had the double move where Neighbors won by a ridiculous amount, and he still had to catch it like a punt. I mean, that's like any D2 college quarterback is going to hit a better throw than that.
I could hit that.
And just in general, right? I honestly think you probably could if you had like the guts to stand in there with the pass rush. Like I'd just take a knee immediately and throw my hands up. But in general, his deep accuracy was terrible, and the Cowboys were giving up a lot of looks. And you just didn't see with Dallas. You don't see their passing offense really slice through defenses the way that you want it to. It feels like they're always out of rhythm. And that CeeDee Lamb is awesome. And then they have a bunch of guys who aren't terrible necessarily, but aren't really like consistent winners that keep things running smoothly. Brandon Cooks is looking like a step behind where he's used to being, and even last year he wasn't like his best self, but this is even farther behind that. Tolbert is, not like blossom into what they need him to be at all. Ferguson is fine, but not like really used as some crazy weapon. And is more like a safety valve, it feels like, for him a lot of the time. And it expands to the running backs as well, with like Ezekiel Elliott and Dottle, where it's like, there's some things that Dottle's good at, and maybe a lot of it's on the offensive line as well, and they're just not as maybe powerful as a team up front as they used to be. But the explosiveness outside of Lamb on that offense is really hard to find. So it's turned into, even with, Dak and CD, which alone should be a pretty good offense unless you're surrounding them with scrubs, it's just not been as good as it needs to be. And then on the defensive side, it's count the good players. They haven't seriously invested in linebackers since like Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch were starting way back
8 years ago.
I was thinking about this. It's like, when were, like, they try, but when is the last time they tried something like super serious? It wasn't like, we're bringing in like Eric Kendricks or something, or we're going to have like linebackers in quotation marks and they weigh 230.
Safety. Yeah. When was the last time it's someone who's like broad shouldered?
It's like, if they could sign Sean Lee right now, they do it, man. I mean, it's nasty stuff. And then on top of that, it's like, obviously you guys know the DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are now looking to be out for multiple games. It's like, dude, that defense is going to be horrifying. And even when they come back, it's not going to be great. And even if it was how it was last year, which isn't unthinkable, what's the ceiling on that? This is the least exciting the Cowboys have been. Maybe I'm forgetting one year where they really stunk. I think I am, but maybe since like 2015, like pre-Dak. And this is one of the worst Dak teams right now, it feels like. And where the turnaround could come from, outside of like maybe the passing offense gets, and Dak just goes nuts like he was last year and they just win a bunch of shootouts, or Micah really turns it on when he comes back from a high ankle sprain, which is like, you got to be careful with that type of thing. I don't know how this team like significantly gets better. It's easy to overreact through 4 weeks, but it's like they have a lot of the problems they did last year, but just worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, Matt. The passing offense of Dak and CD should be great unless they're surrounded by scrubs. And unfortunately, it's like they've got a bunch of just gadget guys as the rest of their weapons, and like washed old Ezekiel Elliott and like Jake Ferguson. It's just like, count the good players, like you said. It's like, where is the positive force on this team coming from outside?
Yeah, where's the counterpunch to Lamb? I mean, same deal that the Giants had with Neighbors, right? It's like, Neighbors is sick, but who else can do anything? There's Wandale for the Giants, but he dropped a big pass and he's like short. Like, anybody taller than him catches that pass down the sideline. He's a short range weapon. Like, he can break tackles, and then Slayton is your deep threat. They need another 3-level scorer. Same thing with the Cowboys, right? It's at least they've got Ferguson. He's the second weapon, but there needs to be
Ferguson
really
is not like a route winner and like straight. Like, I mean, he had 7 targets. His long caught all of them. I think his long was 9 yards. He is used more as a safety valve than anything. It feels like to
he's
me.
A good blocker.
Which
he's a
good
end
player. It's just like, it's not the type of guy that a defense maybe game plans around, or a type of guy that's going to expose all of the attention that goes on CeeDee Lamb, and that's what they need.
And who really stretches the field horizontally when CeeDee's in the slot? No. Like, they don't even have that. Like, they don't have someone to run it with to keep the two, like, maybe the safeties down, and then they don't have anybody to keep the safeties really wide either. Like, obviously there's somebody out there you have to get somewhat wide, and like CD won down the sideline and scored a huge touchdown in that game. So it's like CD can move around and do it, but there needs to be a second great player in the skill position room, or a second good player in the skill position room. Like, I'd take Michael Wilson tier to be their second wide receiver. Like, I think that's a big problem. And then with the Giants, they just confirmed my fear that they're just spinning their wheels in terms of talent. I feel like I feel great. Like, yeah, they got Neighbors, they got Burns. It's good that they got those guys, I guess. Like, they're good. Like, especially Neighbors is a good player. But then I think about everybody that they let walk out the door. Leonard Williams, Saquon Barkley. It's like, they're talking about, oh, we're going to make the roster our roster. We're going to make the roster, younger and better and more fortified in the valuable positions of edge instead of DT, and wide receiver instead of running back, and corner instead of safety, or whatever it is. And I just think that you're doing all those moves and you're just not getting anywhere. I mean, I don't want to. I've talked about it a lot. I hear all the Giants fans tell me like all these moves made sense in a vacuum. Like we're okay with getting a second for Leonard Williams. We're okay letting Saquon go. He's a running back. We're okay letting Newman has been pretty good. Like he didn't have his greatest game, but I think he has looked pretty promising through the first 4 weeks. So it's like I kind of get what they're saying, but at the same time, there are some and things about it, in my opinion. The way that you could have had Saquon and these
I can think of a move they made in particular relating to Saquon Barkley that did not make sense in a vacuum. The reason why Saquon is not there is because they chose to extend Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley.
And that's is like the Saquon deal and the 2023 draft is a worse single thing than any of the moves they made this offseason, right? And it definitely hamstrung them. But even with the Jones deal, like I had Giants fans telling me like, oh, we couldn't have backloaded the Saquon deal like the Eagles could. It's like, okay, could you not? Because you told me when the Daniel Jones deal was signed how easily they can cut it after 2 years and like be free of it. So why couldn't you backload the Saquon deal if there's a rookie quarterback on a contract and then you're paying Saquon a lot of money? Like that seems like it would fit 2 years from now actually pretty well. Like what specifically is the reason that you couldn't backload the Saquon deal or have him back at all? Because now everything flows through Malik Neighbors. And Singletary is a good running back. Like he's got a low center of gravity. He bounces off tackles. Like he picks his way through everything, but he has no home run hitting ability. And with Saquon, like it just wouldn't be that way against the worst rushing defense in the league. 1.2 yards per carry or whatever it is. Like I just don't 1.1. I just didn't like the way they built it out.
No, and actually, what I disagree with is that all of the moves they made were good in a vacuum. Not the case. I'm sorry. Not bringing back Saquon in a vacuum, bad. He's worth the contract he's getting paid for, and he would have signed it with you, and he's like a team. Like, that's not good, not getting him back. Now, we can say, oh, Daniel Jones contract, but number one, I have questions of like, how are you guys more strapped for cash than the Eagles? And number two, like it wasn't an insane contract. To be completely honest with you, Brian Burns through 4 games, I think he can be better, but as it stands right now, like that doesn't look like a slam dunk at all.
That happened because you could see it on Hard Knocks. This is the craziest thing is like you can see that trade happened because Shane and the Panthers GM are like buddies and they go way back and they have that connection. Like, I don't know, man. I just think that making him the 4th highest paid defensive player in the league isn't an efficient thing.
Damn. No, in a vacuum, that's a bad move. It is. And there's something to maybe trading for a guy and overpaying them a little bit because you just want to get the talent. That can work. Like if you traded for, I don't know, like when the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown and they then made him like the highest paid wide receiver, in a vacuum, giving up like a first round pick and making a guy the highest paid at his position when he's like not the best and not really like quite in that conversation isn't like a great value play that you need to have a bunch of to make the Super Bowl. But it was a good move because A.J. Brown is that level of talent. As it stands right now, Brian Burns is like not living up to that level. He's not like a tier 1 or even really a tier 2 pass rusher. And he's yet to have like a huge breakout season. He's had some really good moments for Carolina. Yeah. But as it stands right now, the production for him has simply like not been good enough. And that's only taking into account the pass rushing and not his run defense. Leonard Williams, you also might say that you'd rather keep him than have the second. You might rather have Xavier McKinney, but those two stand out to me as like not good in a vacuum. The good news is that Neighbors is so awesome that you're probably like, well, at least we, got as big of a slam dunk as we possibly could have in the first round of the draft, which ultimately is probably more important than anything else. It's just like really knocking out of the park a pick like that and having a guy who is not like he's good, you hit a single, he's awesome, he's going to be like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. That level of dude just doesn't come around that often. So bang, right? But at the same time, it just feels like the bad moves worry you not only because it puts you farther behind than you should be, but now you can't trust the front office as much if some of this stuff doesn't start to pan out.
Yeah.
Going forward,
Way to look at it.
the good news is for him, not only is neighbors sick, but the whole 2024 draft class is like looking pretty strong so far. Drew Phillips as well has gotten off to a good start this year. I do think that Newbin has the potential as an X replacement to eventually be that dude. So maybe you give Shane a chance to shed the Daniel Jones contract and see if he can stack these good drafts, but we'll see. I don't know. It was just frustrating because it seemed like the roster construction, even if it was a little bit better, could have beat the Cowboys tonight or last Thursday.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations. Well, if we don't have anything else on the Cowboys and Giants, I figure we can move on to some of the games from Sunday that we watched. I fear Theo and I had the same idea when watching the 1 o'clock window, which maybe we should have coordinated a little bit better, but it is what it is. We can start with Vikings-Packers. Why don't we? They're your team, Theo, the Green Bay Packers. I started watching the first half of this game, and I was like, dude, it just kept getting worse. 28-0 at one point. And, yeah, I pivoted. I just stopped watching after that point, I'm not going to lie. I was like, this game is going nowhere fast. Darnold is on a complete tear. And the Vikings defense looked like it just had Jordan Love in a blender. Like he threw 3 picks in this game. But they did almost come back. So Theo, I'm curious, were there moments where you actually had hope?
Oh yeah, there were. But going into the game, like right before it started, I had a bad feeling. I watched Jordan Love walk in with the Brett Favre jersey on, getting rushed back from the injury. I learned Jair Alexander was out, and I said to Cammie, I said, this is not going to go well. My parents were at the game. They made the drive to Wisconsin to see it. I'm like, this just doesn't feel right for them to show up and get a good performance here. I think they're rushing Love back. I think they're going to drop back and have it look ugly. I think they're not going to be able to cover anybody without Jair or Carrington Valentine. And like LeBron James, I had a vision of the future. He always seems to be able to call these things. So was I. And yeah, it was a complete mess right off the bat. Everything that Jordan Love attempted had such a high degree of difficulty over the course of the whole game, which did result in some really good moments from him and some high-end throws at the end. But at the end of the day, it was just too much strain as he tried to work his way back from the deficit, and just too many turnovers, too many sloppy mistakes, tons of drops on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. LaFleur totally lost his cool for I don't know the reason that set us back 15 yards in the red zone. Just the kicker missed 2 easy kicks. Just every single thing about the Packers that I was concerned about, 100% came true. But they still had a chance at the end. So the bad news for the Packers is the Vikings are very legit. They've got a ton of great players everywhere. They've got a formula that works. The NFC North isn't just them and the Lions. But the good news for the Packers is I think because they rallied, because they were able to turn it around and put 29 points on the Flores defense without Alexander, I think they still gave me plenty of reason to believe that even though the division will be a dogfight this whole year, they're already a bit behind the 8 ball. There really isn't too much reason to give up hope.
Okay. I think
I personally
fair. Go ahead, Matt.
I personally only caught bits of this game. It did seem like, I mean, I guess they went down early, but the Packers got away from the run a lot in this one. I knew I'm looking at the numbers right now. They threw it 55 times and they ran like under 20. And that just doesn't seem like their formula for success. And for a team that can do the little or easy or more reliable stuff really well, Love not leaning on that, or the Packers offense not leaning on that and then getting to it, is definitely disappointing. And it's almost like, again, I didn't see the entire game, so I don't want to assume too much, but it's almost like the same problem with Lawrence, where everything, he's good, everything is just really tough. Now, of course, he started to like really slip through the first 3 games. I didn't watch the Jaguars Houston one. But I feel like maybe Love needs to be careful about falling into the same trap of like, I'm starting to really come into my own, and now everything I've got to hit has got to be next level, especially because he's on a team where he doesn't need to do that at all, even a little bit. Whereas maybe Lawrence is in a situation where he does.
Yeah, definitely. The first pick to Grugier Hill, they disguise their coverage, pop out into a Tampa 2. He thinks that the linebacker is going to carry that vertical way down the field, so he throws the dagger concept, that inbreaker. Grugier Hill just falls off that vertical and like crunches Christian Watson. He gets hurt. It gets intercepted. Like, that was always an insane window, right? To hit that dagger against Tampa 2 with the linebacker like turning and bailing. Like, if he sees it, if he detects that dig at all, you are really playing with fire, and that's exactly what happened. And just everything, like, you can look at the next gen stats passing chart, Matt. There are dots at all 3 levels of the field, everywhere. Red for interceptions, like across his body, touchdown. Like, he threw the last touchdown to Reed was an absolutely beautiful throw. The 2-point conversion to Kraft was really good, like drifting up and then sliding in the pocket to hit that backside mesh coming across the field. Like, there were some really good moments from him over the course of the game, but like just also some just crazy decisions. The one of the picks, I don't know if he was trying to throw it to, there was a wrap concept, so one guy just settled down and then there was like an inbreaker just kind of wrapping around behind him, and I don't know if he was just horrifically overthrew the guy settling down or was attempting the most difficult pass possible to the guy wrapping around him. But at any rate, like, Musgrave jumped up for it, tipped it. It got thrown off. It tipped off Dobbs and was picked. It was just that kind of day where it's just like Love was just trying trick shot after trick shot. Some of it was awesome. Some of it was horrible, but it was more bad than good, unfortunately. And then,
and it definitely did, from what I saw, seem like one of those days. It was like a mix. They did have some moments where it was a misfire, and then it goes through one guy's hands, and then it gets tipped a little bit, so then it goes through the guy behind him, who maybe the pass was to, and then it goes right into the Vikings' hands. So it's like, it's like, it's the combination of the Packers trying to do a little bit too much, getting down early, making some mistakes, and then a Vikings team that is good at forcing mistakes and is good at capitalizing on those mistakes. It's like they've got a lot of, they're not perfect, but they've got a lot of great players where it's like, you have a cornerback injury, it's like they're going to just torch you for that. You have some inaccuracy, like they're going to torch you for that. Like, they're really going to come at you if Love is coming back from an injury. They can do a lot of different things like that, and they can capitalize really well, and that's why they're 4-0.
Yep, they've just got a lot of, like Brian Flores, he can really get you. And I know that when the game started to become more up-tempo and the Vikings defense got a little bit more on their heels, that's when it started to break for them. So maybe that's an answer going forward, is just like play like you're behind, like go fast, don't let them disguise as much. I can see that maybe being a weakness going forward, but I don't know. It's hard for anybody to go up tempo and run that many plays without making the mistakes. But it was nice to see that at the end from the offense, but early on, Flores just cooking. And then they've just got playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Jefferson's catch against Keyshawn Nixon in the end zone, like using his chest as a backboard to let it ricochet into his hands against the tight coverage. It's like, what can he even do? Jordan Addison made some ridiculous plays. Aaron Jones has still got it. And then here's the thing that disappoints me the most about the Packers, and you got to give the Vikings credit for this as well because they have bookend tackles. But look, I think the secondary is playing pretty well. They've got an excuse because Jair was hurt today, but they've created a ton of turnovers. I think the running game has looked pretty good. I think Jordan Love, I'm not too worried about him, honestly. Like, I'm worried about the turnovers. Yes, maybe this is a really high turnover season, but I'm not worried about his ability to hit big time throws and put a lot of points on the board. What I am worried about, and I don't know if it's fixable going forward, is what the pass rush has done. The defensive line has just, Darnold had all day. He used his legs. He escaped. There was lots of open space. Gary just has not been intimidating for anybody this season. Obviously, Darisaw can shut him down, but Brian O'Neill on the other side. Lane Johnson completely blanked him week one. Even against the Titans and the Colts, like really not big performances from him. He has a 7% pressure rate this year. He has one sack, and that was one against the Eagles where like they didn't even know the ball was snapped, so he just ran right around Lane Johnson, who didn't even get out into his stance. That's the only sack he has this year. If he is not balling, and like Clark is not balling either, it's tough to see how this team has any kind of Super Bowl ceiling. I think like there needs to be someone that is all pro in this front seven. There needs to be some. I don't know Super Bowl winners who don't have a guy like that. So the Packers don't at the moment. And I think the fan base blames Quay Walker for a lot of things unfairly. Like they blame that second level of Nixon and Walker and McDuffie, but really it's that front four that absolutely needs to be better. Wyatt has been the most impressive pass rusher that we've had, and he got banged up at the end of the game. That is the thing that I think more than anything else you ought to be worried about as a Green Bay fan, because that was supposed to be a weakness. It hasn't dealt with the injuries or anything, and it's just very mid.
Yeah.
I completely agree. When you posted that was my same thought. I knew that Gary wasn't doing great, but 7% is rough.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean he got a really big contract extension. You need more out of the dude who you're paying big money. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean you've got to go up against Darisaw and Lane Johnson and get a couple. Like you can't look like a Don Factor. Like they can't shut you down like that. I know they're good players that you're going against, but to not really hear his name called at all, it's extremely disappointing.
What is up, hotties? It's almost time to trade in those summer jerseys for fall sweaters. But just because the season is about to change doesn't mean your wellness routine has to fall off. Whether you're catching those last few summer rays or gearing up for the NFL season, Factor's got you covered with meals that keep you fueled and ready. With Factor, you get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. No prep, no mess, and no stress. Whether you're aiming to cut calories, boost protein, or stick to keto, Factor's got 35 different meals and over 60 add-ons to choose from every week. And the best part, they're fresh, never frozen, and ready in just 2 minutes. That's quicker than a lot of your fantasy draft picks. Crush those wellness goals with Factor's restaurant-quality meals featuring premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. And it's not just dinner. Factor's got you covered from breakfast to dessert, making sure you stay fueled and satisfied all day long. So what are you waiting for? Head to factormeals.com/stayhot50 and use the code STAYHOT50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code STAYHOT50 at factormeals.com/stayhot50 to fuel up, stay healthy, and kickstart the NFL season right. What is up, hotties? You know that when it comes to NFL football, Stay Hot has you covered. But who do you turn to when you need to make smart financial decisions? If your answer is our sponsor, NerdWallet, then you're absolutely right. And if it's not, then allow me to change your mind, because not only have they spent thousands of hours researching and reviewing over 1,300 financial products, but they have the tools you need to make smarter financial decisions. Looking for a credit card? Go beyond the basic comparisons. Filter for features that matter to you and read in-depth reviews. Ready to choose a high-yield savings account? Get access to exclusive deals and compare rates, bonuses, and more. House hunting? View today's top mortgage rates for your new home sweet home. So while Stay Hot is your go-to resource for NFL football, make the Nerds your go-to resource for smart financial decisions. Head to nerdwallet.com/learn more. NerdWallet. Finance smarter. Disclaimer, NerdWallet Compare Inc. NMLS 1617539. Do you want to talk about Texans and Jaguars?
Yeah, what did you think, Blaiden? This is the one.
This is one that I didn't catch outside of checking my fantasy team and being like, holy shit, Nico Collins is the GOAT, man. And he is the GOAT.
There's not too much more to take away, to be honest. I don't know what you thought, Blaiden.
Yeah, I mean, Nico Collins is the GOAT. This was supposed to be the Doug Peterson gets fired game, but I fear the Jags didn't play bad enough for him to get fired. Even though they're on like a 9-game losing streak or something ridiculous. And I saw people being like, because there was the interview after the game, and Doug said, why would I be worried about my job security? And everyone's like, what do you mean, why would you be worried? But like, what else is he going to say there? He's like, no, I'm terrified. Like, I think the owner's going to fire me.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Like, he's obviously not going to say that. No, I feel like the Jags, I noticed that, we talked about how Jordan Love does a lot of the same, like they try high level of difficulty stuff in Green Bay, and they kind of do the same thing in Jacksonville. There's 4 quarterbacks in the NFL that are, towards the top, or not even towards the top. There's 4 quarterbacks in the NFL that have an average depth of target of over 10 yards, and it's Anthony Richardson, it's Trevor Lawrence, it's Jordan Love, and it's Brock Purdy. And there's a clear discrepancy in like who's succeeding right now and who's not doing those things. And I just think it's hard to live in a world where you're trying so many high level of difficulty throws. And even though the Jags went out and tried to fix that issue that they had last year with like all the drops with Calvin Ridley, they went out and they got Brian Thomas Jr. You're still living in a world of inefficiency. It's just not going to be an efficient offense that you can live in. Their offensive EPA is like towards the bottom of the league, 27th. Their success rate is 30th. And so, like, even though they looked a little bit better today, it's just they just can't live in this world of offense where like you've got the big plays and you don't really have a whole lot else that you can rely on successful, or that you, not even that they couldn't rely on anything else, but they just choose not to, it almost feels like. But I think Trevor's a perfectly good quarterback still. I know a lot of people are out on him right now. The throw 50 yards across his body that he overshot to Kirk. They're saying that's the throw that makes him a bad quarterback.
He should have hit that.
Yeah, he was open, but like, dude, how hard of a throw is that? I mean, that's an insanely high level.
Post. I mean, it's a long throw, but there's no one out in front of him.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like across your body.
Was it across his? I remember that not.
He was on
really,
the left side and he hit. I mean, it's technically.
It was left going. It was left going right. Certainly, I thought his pocket movement there was good. Like when he threw that, I was like, oh, here we go. This is the slide, the climb up, the launch. Like it all looked beautiful. It pans to Christian Kirk like he's open downfield. You're like, oh, there it is.
And he just
then it lands over his head. And then the Brian Thomas Jr. double move as well. Like, I was wide open. I needed that for the plus 9,000. Brian Thomas Jr. leads the league in touchdowns.
Dude.
But he still got one, didn't he?
He did still get one, but he needs to make up some ground.
He's got to. It's early.
He should have had another. We need all we can
like
get.
a 3-touchdown Brian Thomas game to really get you on track. I feel like
if he gets 10, you're justified though. Like it'll be like, okay, you weren't crazy. It didn't work out because like part of getting like the most receiving touchdowns is like you just have to like every opportunity has to break your way. You can't like miss out on anything, you know, or you need to get like lucky and have like, you know, nobody else go crazy. But
it could still happen, but that's not what's important. It's what's always true about the Jaguars offense, at least so far this year, and really every year. But I said it last week. How often do all three phases go right? Good play call, good throw from Trevor, wide receiver catches it. It's the same every single Jaguars game I watch. There are moments from Trevor Lawrence that are sick. There are moments from the receiving core that is sick. There are like moments where everything looks good, but
notice how he said there aren't. You notice how he didn't say there are moments when the play calling is good.
I mean, it was fine today, I think. I mean, Trevor had to hit some of these throws, and maybe they could have won. But at the same time, like they were in the red zone, up by 3, after the draw to Tank Bigsby. They call like the same play. Like literally identical, same formation, same RPO attachment, same zone run.
Yeah.
Twice in a row, and it fails both times. And it's like the same exact play, like twice. It's I
like
don't
me
see that
inside zone 3
I don't
times in
see
a row.
that on other
Madden.
offenses very much, like running the exact same play 2 times straight. There are moments. I don't know. I do think the play calling is a little bit weaker than Trevor and maybe the potential of the receiving core, but still, like everybody has got to be better. But the thing that stood out to me from this was I was watching C.J. Stroud, and I was thinking, this man is absolutely balling. Like, he is going nuts in this game. He looks fantastic.
He's great.
And then I looked down at the scoreboard, and he was down 3, and it was like until the very end, and that's because they muffed a punt. And then I thought, kind of like the Jordan Love effect that we're talking about, and T-Law, the degree of difficulty on all these Stroud throws, even though he is hitting more of them than not, was so high. It was just a tough way to live. Like, they're explosive, but it makes life tough on the line. And they got booed because of some of the sacks they gave up and the continued penalties. And then it makes life tough kind of on the running game as well, which they kind of got away from, and it hasn't been great since Mixon got hurt. So
I think the struggle with Houston right now is just the lack of Joe Mixon. And I think what they would like to do, honestly, is kind of the way they beat the Colts is, I mean, if the Colts don't hit like some of the craziest throws of all time, then like the game is like completely different. But like, for the most part, I think they want like 40 minutes time of possession and just like let Stroud just kind of cook in like when he needs to. But for the most part, I think they would we see that they would prefer. We saw that all last year. They would prefer to keep the ball on the ground. They just weren't as successful with it. But with Mixon, when he's on the field, it's like, oh, now they can actually do this and it's effective. Yeah. But without him, it's been tough sledding in the run game. So it does feel like Stroud has to do a little bit more. And that's not going to be as
and he did today. He is the GOAT. Yeah. Nico Collins is the GOAT. Like, they had several wonderful connections. Stroud ended with 345 passing yards, 22 first downs, which ranks first this week. Followed by Jordan Love, by the way. Followed by Baker Mayfield, followed by Jaden Daniels, followed by Joe Burrow. Anyway, 22 first downs for C.J. Stroud, 15.2 total EPA added through the air, 21% explosive pass rate. That ranked second behind Matthew Stafford. So, like, he was doing what he needed to do, but I thought that this was a good game to remind everybody, hey, it's all 3 phases. Like, Stroud was outplaying Lawrence, but the Jaguars averaged 6.6 yards per carry. The Texans were below 4. The Jaguars had a big special teams play. So even though Stroud balled out, some other areas of the team didn't quite live up. But shout out C.J. Stroud. Shout out Derek Stingley, who had 2 huge third down stops in a row in the fourth quarter.
Stingley might also be the GOAT.
He might also be the GOAT. They've got enough GOATs on their team that
that's the thing.
And
like,
Mixon is coming back.
There's some cause for concern with Houston. Like, they might not be the team of destiny.
The line is a little rough.
Yeah.
interior pass rush too, probably the DTs.
But I think in general, Stroud, Nico, and Stingley and Anderson, like they've got enough really good players that they'll probably be like a good playoff team. But
I think they're winning their division.
Yeah, no, that can't be denied.
I think they're in pretty good shape to make the playoffs, and they could beat anybody.
Once Laramie Tunsil gets these illegal formation rules down, it's going to be different.
Oh my god!
And
I feel like
still
this season has had a lot of penalties so far.
The damn
Probably
refs. Right. Yep. Is it just me, or have the refs been particularly bad this year? We're still a couple weeks away from somebody hitting that one, I think. Although, can I go off on a tangent for like 2 seconds?
Go for it.
Final drive, Cincinnati against Texas Tech in this game.
Wow, we're going way back.
We're going way back. Okay, dude. So Sorsby, their quarterback, Cincinnati's, rolls out, slides, and gets hit in the head. And it's one of those, I'll admit, where it's not like the clear. It's a late hit. Like Sorsby's started to slide like way early. It's really not that close. Yeah. And they called it targeting on the field. They review it. They don't just like review it to see if he gets ejected. They pick up the penalty entirely. They don't even say it's a late hit. And then they do like, sorry, 10-second runoff now. And they pull that card when it was a penalty on the other team that got called back. And Cincinnati is the one trying to drive down the field. That's sick stuff. I don't know if that's the refs or the rules. It shouldn't work like that. It shouldn't be like that. That's not fair.
Let me add on to this tangent with a joke about my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. They drafted too many Georgia Bulldogs, and now their game played out the exact same way.
I was thinking the exact same thing, dude. I was like, this is just like the Georgia-Alabama game.
Vikings are going to end up with Ryan Williams at the end of this, is how I know it will end.
Him and Jeremiah Smith, dude, really, it's insane how good those two are.
It's crazy that Williams is only 17.
That 75-yard touchdown, actually one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in my life. Like top 10, I think.
Just like the spin move out of that was just ridiculous. It's like, how could you possibly pull that off against like, the Georgia defenses?
Yeah.
For game? Come on.
For game.
It felt like instantly felt like one of those college football plays that you always remember. Like the Jadeveon Clowney hit, the kick six. Like it felt that special.
Why is this? Good thing Alabama got one, because like the kick six was against them.
2-2 Devontae Smith in the Georgia game is up there as well.
That's also true.
Yeah, poor Alabama. Good thing they got something to break their way.
Alabama has a couple moments.
Yeah, it's nice to see a lowly franchise like Alabama finally get something, dude. Oh yeah,
kick six
on the right side of history.
But
especially regarding their wide receiver play.
Real.
I'm ready to back the horse a little bit. Brendan Sorsby, Cincinnati's quarterback, I think on some level is an NFL guy.
When he's an undrafted free agent, this victory lap.
Hey, it might be a day 3. I don't know. He's got tools. He stands in there under pressure. He doesn't take a lot of bad sacks. He's got a good combination of like moving through reads. I don't think he's played the greatest defenses yet, and I do think he has a really good supporting cast around him, like comparable to his talent. But he's not even eligible this year, and he looks like kind of good. He's got to rein in the accuracy a little bit. We're standing by. We're watching here. I think they could have something potentially in terms of, better than what they had before, at least. Anyway.
Better than Ritter?
Well, yeah, let's not go crazy. He's played
Theo,
5
do you want to talk
games,
about
so
Saints Falcons?
Oh, yes. Another one that was derailed by a muffed punt. There were several of those in the early window. The Packers got one, the Jaguars got one, and the Falcons got one, but the Falcons were able to actually win. They also got a pick 6. And I feel like Clint Kubiak's insanity run felt a little bit over to me in this game.
Yeah.
Every single pass in the first quarter was like short to the left, including 3 behind the line of scrimmage. Lots of screens. Just get it out quickly to the left. Too many. Because they went back to the well in the second quarter. They continued doing it. Then their screen got jumped because they'd run it like 4 times or something similar, like 4 or 5 times to that point. So it got jumped, of course. Derek Carr had to hold it and then try to like sidearm it around Matthew Judon, who tipped it up in the air, and it got pick sixed. So not only did they allow a muffed punt touchdown, but they allowed a pick 6 touchdown as well, because they were obsessed with calling screens the entire first quarter. And they honestly outplayed the Falcons' offense, I thought. Like, their defense looked pretty good. They shut Bijan down pretty well. And Kirk Cousins is inconsistent. I'll say that. He's not always terrible. He had some real dimes down the field, like just dropping back, getting the ball out of his hands quick, hit some beautiful hole shots, hit some digs really nicely. At the same time, some of them are disasters, I feel like, and bad accuracy, like didn't step into the throw moments, like didn't move around the field like plays. So they're a drop back passing offense, and it looks better than it did last year because there are these high highs somewhat consistently, but there's also low lows with him. So the car looked a little bit better. Again, I thought, well, I don't know. But it did seem like the Falcons offense did lag a little bit behind the Saints offense. It's just that they got those two big plays in the other phases, those 2 touchdowns in the other phases, and they were able to pull out the win. Drake London, I 100% believe in as a wide receiver 1 alpha type guy. Like, he has been sick and kind of carrying them. Tyler Algier was pretty amazing. Like, this was a really physical game. Like, everybody was hitting. It felt like Algier was just kind of built for that. Like, he was trucking through everybody. So he deserves a lot of credit as well. But yeah, I think the Saints have got to be pretty sick.
A certain coach might have been right to give Tyler Algier as many touches.
Bijan not playing good. I'll take my L on that one if he doesn't get right, because I feel like he's so talented. Kyle Pitts with goose egg catches. Arthur Smith, what did you know?
He knew how good of a blocker Pitts was.
He knew how good Pitts blocking for Algier would be.
I don't know, man.
I'll say through 4 weeks NFC. So I guess they're 3-1 and they're leading, but it does feel like we'll see with the Saints. Carr is like sort of regressing to the mean here a little bit, it feels like. And obviously they were never going to sustain what they were. I didn't see a lot of this game, but the numbers have it. It hasn't been like I can go throw 15 passes and 3 touchdowns and that could be it, and I'm just going to hit a few deep shots. And then when it's asking more, it can get more difficult for him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the Falcons have been good, and they've been competitive with tough teams, But it's going to come down to how the consistency goes. The Broncos had a stinker or the Tampa had a stinker against the Broncos, but I think they've looked the best in the division so far.
Yeah, I didn't really watch a ton of their game against the Eagles. The stats say they just dominated in the trenches, which is so funny because like last week they got obliterated in the trenches. And last week the Eagles kind of won in the trenches. At least Jalen Carter was getting a ton of pressure. So who knows how it all stacks up. I agree with you that the Buccaneers have got to feel pretty good right now. Shout out Young-Ho Koo. That's the last thing. 2 huge field goals, including the game winner, like 50-plus yards. He was very money.
I'm going to lob a fact grenade at you real quick, though.
Grenade?
Fact grenade.
Oh. I thought you said fat grenade, too.
We're looking at Rachaad White, 66 rushing yards, 2.1 yards a carry. This is only 3 games, not updated for 4. But Bucky Irving, 6.2 yards a carry. Who's the alpha there? Who's the GOAT there? Let me know right now.
White has been way more efficient than.
No.
Wait, no. Irving has been way more efficient than White. So you may have cooked there, Matt. I feel like eventually that's going to have to flip, although I haven't quite seen the numbers from today.
They were the exact same today. They had both the exact same number of touches and yards, or carries and yards. We don't care about receiving. That doesn't count.
It was a total tie?
Yes, 10 carries for 49 yards. The Bucky, Rachaad White, wore wages on for another battle.
How about this, though? Elusive rate, Rachaad White versus Bucky Irving. Rachaad White is at 22%. Bucky Irving, 43%. Rush EPA per play through 4 games. This is updated, folks. Negative 0.31 EPA per rush for Rachaad White. 0.14 for Bucky Irving. Fantasy points per touch, Bucky Irving has the lead. Yards before contact per rush, 0.1 for Rachaad White, 0.1, 1.83 for Bucky Irving. Those are pretty damn
I'm so
numbers,
happy
man.
he's translated, man. He looked so good at Oregon, dude. And to see him ball out, even though like I believe the RAS score a little bit. I won't lie. I was like, that's tough to overcome when you're like a 25 percentile athlete or whatever, or however.
It was probably lower
that's
than
the way
that.
that is.
But
yeah, it was bad. And I was like, he's light, but he just doesn't play light. He just has better contact balance than that. That's just the reality of who he is. And sometimes that stuff translates. Sometimes somebody will be like small and undersized, and that's like, well, that won't work at the NFL level, and then it doesn't. And sometimes it does. And Bucky's one of the times that it does, and it's awesome.
Yeah, his efficiency numbers have been way better than White. I know White made some plays in the receiving game. Like, obviously, he's great there, but I wonder if eventually Bucky starts to get the majority of the carries considering those differences.
Yeah.
Yep, I completely
It'd be
agree.
hard not to.
But let's move on to the next window.
I was about. Matt,
Unless you want to talk about the Panthers.
I did watch Panthers, Bengals. We're starting to get to the point through 4 weeks choked. Yeah, a little bit.
Where you saying
I
that Matt
guess.
choked by watching that game?
Oh, I thought you meant the.
He choked. No, yeah, he made like an emotional. He made a Sirianni decision on emotion.
Well, this is the thing. It's like I was hyped going into the game, bro. I'm like pumping myself up. Like, dude, honestly, like, yeah, the defense sucks, but you see what Washington just did? Dude.
At least give us the Legette report. That's what I want to know about.
Legette can win as a route runner and does like really well. And then they throw to him when he gets open. At least in this game, he was cooking. Like he had like subtle stuff where he'd fake one way slightly and get him and then go back the other way. He saw a good number of targets. His separation score on a couple of previous games hasn't been that good, but like he's a guy he's a great athlete and he's big, but he can turn quickly. And that's sort of one of the things we saw at South Carolina where it's like, okay, well, this guy isn't just like big and fast, but he's got something that makes him a little bit special. You consider this type of receiver to not win in this way, and he can. And that translates to being a better route runner. And for somebody who is a little bit older, but because of their career path, maybe wasn't going to be as polished coming in, it already looks really good. However, when the ball is in the air, I truly believe he's probably one of the worst receivers in the entirety of the NFL.
That's bizarre. 'Cause I feel like
This
he
is
was
like
good
the
at that.
opposite of what he was like in college.
I'm just going to tell you point blank, based off of this game, there is no other judgment that you could possibly come to. And here's the thing. I'm not saying like it's over or it's done, because we've seen better, and I think he can be better, and this is game 4. It's a long career, right? And he's already getting separation, which is what we care about. And maybe he didn't have great separation early, and now he's like, we're seeing quick improvement. He had multiple horrific drops where, I mean, it's just right at his chest, and he's trying to catch, like this. I'm doing like a punt motion if you're listening on Spotify. And there's other times where he's just not playing the ball in the air, I mean, nearly at all. There's a time where he got thrown down the sideline, and he cooks. I forget who was on him. cooks the cornerback. And instead of coming back towards the ball because Dalton was trying to fit it in like before the safety was able to come down, he kind of just keeps running. And there's just other times where it's like he's like jumping for no reason, which is concerning even when he's wide open. Or even on his first catch, you could sort of tell because he was going towards the sideline. Like, he was not that close, but he came really close to stepping out because he doesn't seem to have very good body control with his legs. And there's been a couple times this season where it's been on the sideline and he hasn't been able to come down with it. And it's a tough catch, but it's a tough catch that you'd like him to make. And even on a lot of his other catches, it definitely feels like, you know, you tense up a little bit because he's not catching it as confidently as a lot of other guys will. So that's something you want to see improve, but certainly there's like, it's not that there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. And I think if he's winning a lot, he's going to get a lot of reps and a lot of opportunities to continue to build off of that. So that was my takeaway.
Yeah, I didn't see this one, so I 100% believe you that he had some awkward. Obviously, you saw it. There's no awkward drops. But I will run the box score. If I was just looking at that, I'll let you know the numbers. 6 receptions on 10 targets, 66 yards, and a touchdown. He had one of the better EPA per target. So whatever he did catch, it must have been valuable. First downs and touchdowns and whatnot. So he did have a good statistical day.
Look, and that's the thing. It's like, despite that, he's still winning so much that he is a good player. And again, this is game 4 for a rookie. Who knows what it'll be 2 years from now or by the end of this season? But you've got to flag those things as stuff to improve. I also am going to hit you with a heartbreaker. Panthers, 4th down in their own territory. Who's their punter? Johnny Hecker. What do? They fake the punt. Tight end runs out. Thrown to him.
Who could it be?
Felipe Franks dropped it.
Surely he was defensed.
It was, but like he should have caught. Felipe Franks selling. It was tough to watch, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. It broke my heart.
Tremble, real talk.
Hold on, third quarter. Let me pull this one up real quick. Third quarter,
I'm telling you.
5:26. Turnover on downs here. They don't have the film up yet. That's hard.
It was not an excusable drop, I'm afraid. This is coming from a guy who was team captain not all that long ago. Last game, because they do rotating special team captain. So it was
I'll take a target at this point.
We're taking Felipe Frank's target. Yep. Green check mark. Let's go.
I'll take what I can get, even if it was a game-losing drop.
Hey, that's more than Matt Corrales had.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Also, Shaq Thompson had to be carted off. So we're looking at the worst defense of all time coming together perfectly for this game against the Bears. It's going to be it's going to be bad. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't want to like make this out as like being a doomer. And it's like, anytime you think one thing will happen in the NFL, the opposite happens. But like, dude, they're probably like, if Caleb Williams was going to have a breakout day against a team that traded away the pick to get him, and like a defense that is missing all of its good players outside of J.C. Horn, I don't want to go that far, but like a lot of them, dude. Like, it could be bad. This could be like the big Caleb game.
Do they play Caleb Williams next week?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Shaq Thompson's like not going to be ready, and like their defensive line is just terrible. It's going to be.
You're getting 400 yards and 3 touchdowns from Caleb Williams.
You don't know what's going to happen to your team in the NFL if you are anybody but a dynasty or maybe one of the 3 worst teams in the league. Then you have a pretty good idea of if
when you're one of the worst when you're one of the worst teams in the league, you can sort of start to see the formation of like the worst possible imaginable scenario where it's like Goodell sent down the script himself to be as mean as possible to the fan base. It's like, yeah, the entire defense would get hurt. We would have already benched Bryce Young. it'll be against the Bears and Caleb will go crazy and we traded the pick for him. It's like, yep, that all is adding up. And DJ Moore's going to go for 300 yards on JC Horn. Yep, like it's like, although DJ Moore is kind of beefing with the Bear. Have you seen this?
I didn't see anything from today. I mean, his body language hasn't been great at all times this offseason, but he just had a pretty nice...
Is this today? He's sitting by himself. That's like all the time on the sideline. So I think here's the thing. I think he's probably going to get traded. Yep. And I think the Bears will get back a third. Yep. And Caleb
I think they're going to
is either a bust or will leave.
For Amari Cooper.
He's got to be happy today. Caleb's looking better. These last 2 weeks, Caleb's been pretty good. His touchdown to Moore today went in the collapsing pocket, like getting through his reads. That was a really nice one.
I think he's gonna be fine.
I think he's gonna be all right. The Colts game calmed me down after the Texans game.
Yes,
and even the Texans game upon a rewatch, like maybe it wasn't quite as bad as it seemed. But
that being said, if we wanted to move on to the 4:00 window, there is another rookie quarterback who lit it up again. I know we talked about him, I think, like last episode, so maybe we don't want to.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about Jayden Daniels.
I didn't watch this game, but while I was watching the Browns get embarrassed, I happened to see a scorecard, and I was like, they're it's like what's the Stephen A? It's like, is Jayden Daniels a good quarterback? He's up 30. It's like when James Harden a top 5 player? He's averaging 40. Dude, I mean, I can't say anything at this point. Like
26 for 30, 86.7% completion percentage. That is after his 91% last week. 233 yards from him in this game. Threw a pretty nice touchdown in the red zone on double post against quarters.
Yep.
Matt, how hyped are you about Jayden Daniels? I know that I'm the Jayden doomer in the pre-draft process. You guys were maybe a bit higher on him than me. After watching this September, how much stock of Daniels are you buying, Matthew Spano?
I think there's like a few things where at LSU you would mark them as negatives that he is obviously better at. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Now, we can talk about, the caveats, which there are, certainly, through only 4 games for any rookie who's ever existed. But there's 2 things that I like. I think that he has found a sweet spot with how he runs the ball. He is not running like it is LSU, and he's going for Heisman in those numbers. And while he still is willing to go down and be physical, he's doing a much better job of not like the Looney Tunes sort of running across the field and just getting clobbered stuff. And maybe more importantly, when he decides to run and how he mixes that in, he's got the right spot, which is so important. Some quarterbacks, they can't run, they can't pull it out when they need to, or they stick in the pocket too much. Some guys, they run too much. Daniels right now feels like he's running the exact amount and using that power in the exact right way. The other thing is he is hitting throws over the middle of the field.
Yes.
And he's doing them accurately, and he's doing them sometimes with anticipation, and he's doing them sometimes in small windows. And really, I don't want to say that he looks like Stroud, but there's some of the same stuff where it's like Stroud got out there and it's okay, well, the accuracy is just really good, and he's really confident, and it's worked out well for him. So I think those 2 things look really good. And then on top of that, it seems like he's been super decisive and he's making the right decisions, and the deep ball still looks really good, which we had no question about how that was going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, look, has he done this against some really stinky defenses? Yes, he has. Could it possibly get tougher and be totally different when they play a real defense? I think almost certainly it's going to be. I think probably he's not going to set the completion percentage in a single season record by 8 or 9%. We could say that stuff. And I still think that his pressure to sack rate is not great, but he's just not seeing a ton of pressures right now. Like we said last week, the Bengals weren't getting a lot of pressure on him, and that's one of the questions you have. And I don't think the Cardinals, I don't know what the numbers are in their pressures, but I don't think the Cardinals were getting a ton of pressure because they don't have a great.
No,
wouldn't.
Right. So at some point, I want to see what happens when the pocket is struggling, because a lot of times that's going to be what makes a great quarterback. How do they handle that? Because I think while this supporting cast has been certainly better than we thought, or at least like they've got receivers who can go out and just get wins in man or whatever. And that at least, gives Daniels options in a way that sometimes other young quarterbacks will go in a situation. Honestly, I'm thinking about Bryce last year, even if Bryce, I think, isn't great. But there'd be times where it's just nobody's winning, and nobody is going to be able to get themselves open. And it doesn't matter what the play design is. It doesn't matter what Bryce does. It doesn't matter who's back there. It's there's just nothing to do. Washington, I had some concerns where it'd be McLaurin and nobody, but McCaffrey's played well, and Zacchaeus played well. So it's okay, There's a level of play. Again, we'll see how that holds up against, a great defense. Maybe they play I don't know who they play for the rest of the year. They play the Ravens in 2 weeks. They play the Browns next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go Browns, Ravens back to back.
But I think it's pretty rare to see a guy get off to this good of a start and then just be a straight up bust. I don't think that's going to happen with Daniels. I think that he's really good. And the other thing is that, we're talking about a guy who has played 4 games, and yeah, maybe he struggles with pressure early. And I'll admit, I think that's one of the harder things to improve upon is your pocket presence. But I was thinking about it, and I went and looked, and it got better his last year at LSU. He didn't take as many sacks as he did the year previous. And with how much we've seen him improve on other stuff, how can you sit here and say, no, he can't continue to get better at other things? I don't think that you can.
It's very tough to know, I think, what direction his sack rate will go in going forward. I feel on one hand, the Bengals and Cardinals are probably at the very bottom of your pass rush rankings. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, exactly like you said, every week he's improving. And next week, who knows what he could look like? He could be sliding around the pocket like he's Tom Brady next week at this rate. It's been going pretty well. I looked it up. Here are the best Septembers in terms of total EPA, passing EPA generated that I could find going back to 2007. Mm-hmm. Here are the names on that list. In the top 20, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Tony Romo, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, Drew Brees. Those are your top 21.
I hear one bust in there. So.
Tua? I mean, yeah. I think Tua and Goff are your probably worst 2 names in there.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty good group to be mentioned in. I saw a stat that the Commanders are now the second most efficient offense in terms of EPA per drive since 2000, only behind the 2007 Patriots through 4 weeks. The numbers are just completely gaudy with how good they are. So yeah, you can't just write it off as it's all the defenses, it's all it's all this or all that.
Here's the thing: even if we were to write it off as they just play a bunch of bad defenses, dude. We're talking about they play Browns and Ravens the next 2 weeks. They play the Steelers a little bit later this season, but they don't play any good defenses all year for the most part. They play the Browns, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Saints. They play the Falcons the second to last game. Look,
it's not a bad lineup for them. I mean, dude, they're first in the NFC East. That is so crazy. I think Washington being 3-1 is easily the craziest thing happening in the NFL right now.
I think it's them or the Vikings being maybe.
No, I think it's way. I was thinking about this. It's way crazier than that.
Them being this highly ranked and everything is pretty wild. I will say this: I do think it's going to regress pretty substantially. I will say that. When Carr was doing
Right.
so
Exactly.
well through the first 2 weeks, we all said there's no way that this continues. And I think he's been playing fine maybe these last 2 weeks, or he's been playing whatever. But yeah, it did come crashing back down substantially. With
Right.
JAYDEN, I just really do not think that this is going to continue. But this, right? Like, you can come down from this pretty far and still be a very positive player. The accuracy looks so good. That is the thing that really blows my mind. Just every throw, you can wait for him to miss one. You can wait, like, even when he's under pressure, he's got like the fadeaway off of his back foot, and it's getting there just perfectly on the money, like right on the face mat, right where you want it to be every time. He is not missing any of his layups. He's hitting some difficult ones down the field. He's hitting stuff with pressure in his face. Like, even if the sack rate goes up these next few weeks instead of down, I just don't know what, like, accuracy wasn't really his issue at LSU at all. Like, he was very accurate. And so it makes me buy, and just the level of accuracy that it's been, like, again, 80% through 4 weeks, it's never been done before. So because he seems so good in that trait, that it does make me think that you can build a lot around that. And he looks comfortable. He looks poised. You mentioned that he's got a good rhythm running. He has scrambled a lot. 23 times through 4 weeks is a ton. Looking at True Media, I don't know if there's been anyone else who has scrambled more than 23 times through the first 4 weeks. So
But it's when he's doing it and how he's doing that, I think, that makes that work. I think it's fantastic for him to run a lot, but it's not through some, like, inability to do something else. It's through, this is my best option on this play. Oftentimes it feels like.
It's another thing, though, that just combined with the defenses, I'm just like, we'll see how much he can scramble, I guess, going forward. Like, he's scrambling at such a high rate, I feel like, against such bad pass rushes, that I am very curious to see how he does with the space constricted. I really think this has been kind of a notable, and it's why his completion percentage is so high, because he's so easily been able to say, oh, nothing's downfield, let me just scramble. And so many of them have been positive because these pass rushes have not been able to punish him for holding the ball. And that is something I've got my eye on going forward. Is his internal clock will, I think, have to speed up a little bit in these next few weeks, or it'll have to speed up, not a little bit, but it's a lot harder going up against the Browns and the Ravens and the
right. Jim Schwartz, I mean, he knows how to get after guys.
But who's to say he can't do it? Who's to say he can't do it?
I do also want to just, again, I didn't catch this, so Matt, I guess this is for you. I thought this game had the makings to be a shootout. I looked at it, two defenses that both looked to be very bad, and the Cardinals just couldn't get anything done on offense, it seems like. 14 points, they got beat by almost 30. What went wrong for Arizona that they couldn't do anything against this Washington defense?
They had a mix of things go against them. I think Kyler took some bad sacks and was frustrated, and there was some messed up timing. You had like a Michael Wilson fumble. And I think Washington just being able to, like, sustain a lot of drives sort of got them a lot of clock control. I don't think necessarily that Arizona was super inefficient for a lot of this game. Maybe I'm totally off, but like they were running the ball really well for a lot of it. And they were able to hit some big plays when Murray got the ball off. I mean, Marvin Harrison had a touchdown and all of that, and there was that much, but like I just don't think that. I think they kind of got down and running the ball was what they really wanted to do. I don't know if you had any different thoughts about this, Theo, but no, I wasn't like Arizona's offense is doing anything like horrible. It was like they're running well, Kyler's taking some sacks, and I guess they're not doing anything like crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was tough to tell because something was happening downfield. Like, Kyler was looking downfield and just not really finding much, but it's tough to tell on the broadcast. He only averaged 6.5 yards per attempt. He only had 142 passing yards, and he didn't really scramble much. So it was a lot, and he took 4 sacks. So it was a lot of him holding the ball, looking downfield, not finding much. There was 1 4th and 1 towards the end of the half, where they went for it, trying to hunt a touchdown, maybe a closer field goal. They had Michael Wilson open on a snag, and that one I could see Kyler was just a little bit too short to find that throwing lane, sat down over the ball. So there were some moments like that where I was like, okay, like Kyler does have some limitations in the pocket. He has become a more focused pocket passer, I feel like, under Petzing, but there were some moments where I was like, Kyler's not really seeing things super well down the field. We'll see just how severe that is when the All-22 releases, because he was looking downfield and not really finding much in terms of deep shots. Kind of
5.7 yards per carry for the
one
Cardinals.
of the big storylines from this game that blew my mind. Jeremy McNichols is the GOAT, apparently. He is money in pass protection these last 2 weeks. And also, he looks like another Boise State man, Ashton Genty, whenever he touched the ball in this game. Like, just breaking every tackle, like, stiff arming people. Like, he's been a beast these last 2 weeks. Like, where did that come from?
I agree. And Genty, dude. I'm hype about him. I'm so on the Heisman train for him right now.
You
Not
just want
to
a
change the
non-quarterback.
conversation entirely. I do.
It was a great college football weekend, so I'm glad
it was.
Throw these calls.
I do. I don't care. I am always. It's like the same thing. It's like if there's a quarterback who's obviously head and shoulders the best player, or like even like close to it, I get it. I'm not even but like. Genty has 800 yards and 13 touchdowns in 4 games. And he didn't even... And when he had the chance, Portland State, who had whooping cough, he could have racked up 500 against them. 11 carries for 127 and called it. He's ethical about it, too. And here's the thing. Every single play he has is like the greatest play of all time. It's ridiculous, dude. It is.
He's so fun to watch. He's like, I don't want to be. Okay, this is a little ringer comp pilled, but he's like Aaron Jones with the Mario invincibility star. That's always what is running through my mind. He's got that signature. He has the ball in his outside hand and is like. His inside arm is such a weapon on all the stiff arms. He's like the best stiff arm artist I've ever seen. And that always just reminds me of Jones. It's like bouncing to the outside, stiff arming everybody. The thing about Genty, yeah, a lot of running backs do it, but like build wise too. Like they're both smaller people. But Genty has. He just breaks every tackle. Like he just doesn't go down no matter what. And he's got the home run speed. Like I don't understand how he runs through everybody the way he does. Like he's in the middle of like a huge pile and he just like pops out. No lack of energy, like no like stumbling or slowing down. He just is like nothing even phases him.
The Caddies cut-ups film reviews of Ashton Genty will move mountains.
And the thing is, it's like there's nothing phony about it. There's nothing phony about Genty having 845 yards through 4 games.
No.
He is not stat padding. He put up 200 against Oregon. Like, and it's not like the offensive line is so dominant and he's just like hitting like easy home runs.
No,
Dude,
he actually
it's like
breaks
every
tackle.
play is ridiculous, man. It's like he'll break 5 tackles every play. And
Yeah,
I think. Like, it's so tough for a guy in his position to win Heisman. But what people are already talking about him. The highlights back it up. He's going to have insane counting stats. And you can't really call him a group of 5 merchant because he did it against Power 5 competition easily. He's got absolutely everything going for him. I really, really think he's the leader of this race right now, even with other great players.
I mean, he's on pace for 2,700 yards.
He's on pace for the most ever. He's slightly ahead of Barry Sanders' pace.
Oh my God! Yeah,
He's a beast,
Jalen
dude.
Milroe's going to take this away from him, though.
Milroe has been great. He has not been on Ashton Genty's level. He's been a great quarterback. He's been, and in some years, I think, like, I'm sure his numbers are great and, like, it can happen. But, like, if Ashton Genty were to keep this up, like, it would be psychotic. Like, No, like he would just be the Heisman.
But he's a quarterback, so he has to.
Genty is currently 4th in odds.
He was 11th before last game. He moved way up.
Okay. Well, yeah.
It's a very tough pace for him to keep up. I mean, how many yards per carry is he averaging? Probably like 10.
The other guy you got to worry about is Travis Hunter, though. Like, that's the other thing, is he plays corner and wide receiver, and he's like so good at both. It's like, how do you contextualize
but here's the thing.
Hunter?
I'm not worried
versus
about
Genty?
that. That would be an even greater victory for the non-quarterback. Like, that would be awesome, dude. And here's the thing. It is between those two. Those are the two best players in college football right now, I think. If you want to say Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams and go the true freshman young wide receiver route, I'm down with that too, honestly. I'm cool with any of those options. But there is
fuck these quarterbacks, man. Anyone
but this is how it should be some years. Like if the award was even a little fair, it's like, no disrespect to Milrow. I'm not saying he can't win it or anything.
Right.
But it shouldn't be like default quarterback even now with like a guy who's going to have 1,000 yards and be drafted in the top 10 as a cornerback and a guy who's on pace to be the greatest single rushing season ever. It's like those should be the two front runners. And a guy having a great quarterback season should be in the mix, but not the leader currently.
Yeah, I agree with you that Genty is the leader in the clubhouse and should even be a higher favorite if all were fair. But we'll see how it goes. He's a beast, though. I think that he'll keep it up. He's a
real NFL prospect. He's going in the first round.
Oh yeah, I mean. Yeah, he's a monster. I don't know what else to say.
We got one more game to get to. The Sunday night game.
We've got more than that.
Do you want to say something about the Cleveland Browns and how they're awful and how Deshaun Watson is ass and how
I'll give. You could put me on a timer. I'll get 5 minutes.
Okay.
Max.
Yeah.
The Browns starting offensive line is supposed to be from right to left. Okay. Conklin, Teller, Pochik, Bitonio, Wills. I have my criticisms of Wills, but overall, I think that's a good offensive line. I think you all would agree with that.
Yes.
The current offensive line is DeJuan Jones, who has had his lunch money taken by every speed rusher he has faced so far this year.
Buckeye Doe.
Rookie Zach Zinter, Nick Harris, who has played a combined 5 games since 2021 at center, Joel Bitonio, who is good, and Hudson. Like, it is disastrously bad up front. And I'm going to be real. I've given my criticisms of Watson, but I think he played quite well for the Browns today. I think it was probably his best performance as a Brown, which doesn't say much, but it's a step in the right direction, I guess. He hit some good throws. I guess the main throw that I want to talk about, or not even a throw, the lack thereof, is the sack on 4th and short with under a minute, 2 timeouts. Like, you need a touchdown to win the game, and he takes a sack. I've seen a lot of people say that, well, he had 3 guys open. Like, how did he not get to any of them? Have you seen this? Have you seen this, Theo?
No, it just... this description, he took a sack and he had 3 guys. You're talking about this is Watson's best game as a Brown. I'm seeing they lost 16-20, funny. And you're hyping up a play where he took a sack and people are saying there were 3 people open down the field.
Watson made the mistake here, but he's not. But people are pointing out the wrong mistake. Is the problem? They're like, how did he not find any of these guys open? So the throw that he wanted to hit was a throw in the corner of the end zone, and he started his throwing motion to hit this pass, and I just don't think he trusted the window. But like, he probably had enough space to fit this in. Like, if he put some juice on it or some air under it, and he just doesn't throw it. He pulls his punches, and that was the mistake he made. Because as soon as he pulled his punch, he had a guy in his lap. And at that moment, he could no longer go to the other two guys that were open. And so everyone's like, why didn't he get through to his next second and third option? It's like, well, he didn't have time to do that.
And then
But
he tried
should
to
have just
escape, and then he's
thrown
like
the
too
first
damn
pass.
slow, and too damn slow, not only moving, but just doing anything, man.
Yeah. Well, and he did hit some good passes today. Like, he hit a pass to Amari Cooper. They got dropped and intercepted.
Yeah, I did see that.
Horrible.
That one was bad. Amari's trying to get to the Chiefs.
He is, man. No, and then they had the missed PAT, and that made it tough for them in that need to get a touchdown situation because they couldn't kick a field goal to send it to overtime. They had to score a touchdown.
Brown's gonna brown, I'm afraid.
Browns are gonna brown, and then they're like, they couldn't
that was a very
tackle for half the
classic
game.
Browns moment. And that's one of those moments where it's like you see them do that and you're like, they're not going to be able to kick a field goal that they need to, and they're going to miss a fourth down because that's how it's going to go down. And it's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. They did have a defensive touchdown though, which hey, we'll take those. Yeah, they just the offensive line sucks. The receivers can't get anything done. Can I give like a weird conspiracy theory? Like,
yes,
I don't even know if
please,
this is...
Please do.
I kind of think that some of... Like, I don't think it's actually happening. But, like, there's a little bit too much going wrong outside of Watson for me to believe that
God hasn't
some of the
intervened.
Browns aren't, like, conspiring to sell to, like, get
here's
Watson
the thing.
benched.
You think the Browns can't possibly be this bad regularly? I promise you they can. If
like,
Browns fan
the Amari
watching the
Cooper
team,
drop
it
was
must be
so-
on purpose. They have to be intentionally doing this.
Like, the Amari Cooper drop was so bad. There was a time where DeJuan Jones straight up got ran by. Like, he pops up and the edge guy and the edge rusher just run. It was Tyree Wilson, just went right by his hip and he didn't even flinch. Like, didn't even move. It's just
You
like,
know those crazy videos of like people playing to catch a predator, and they're like they like lure somebody in and then they like humiliate them on camera.
Yes.
Maybe that's what the Browns, the rest of the Browns offense is doing to Deshaun Watson.
I could see it, man. Dude, it's...
lure him in. This is his punishment to get him.
Yeah, maybe they're. I don't know,
Well, he
man.
took
It seems pretty. When Amari is selling, you know things are bad.
That's what-
like he's just been.
the only guy who wasn't selling.
So
The only guy
bad
who
this
wasn't
year.
selling was Jerry Judy. Jerry Judy is playing like kind of nice.
Jerry Judy save us
Shout
in
out to him.
2024.
Shout out to him.
But
Like,
yeah, it's just like
Conspiracies aside, Amari Cooper is playing like.
he's playing really bad. No, I
playing
mean
really
this is
bad.
the worst he's ever played as a pro. Like point
Yeah.
blank period. He looks really bad.
But they told me a 5th round pick was a steal for him.
It was last year when he was balling.
No,
Man.
They told me Jerry Jones didn't fleece you, Blaiden.
Yeah, not looking good in Cleveland. The offense just sucks. It's just so bad. Complete disaster. Now, if you guys want, I mean, the game that I was talking about that we haven't talked about was Chiefs Chargers, but we could save that.
It's just not his fault, and then I expect the Chiefs to make a trade for some wide receiver at some point.
Yeah.
We'll hit it next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hit that next episode more. Let's talk about Sunday night, Bills versus Ravens. Are the Ravens hitting their stride, or are the Bills' defensive injuries just catching up with them? Theo, let's throw to you first. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I thought that this was a fantastic performance by the Ravens. It's hard not to feel that way. I mean, the
Yeah.
Bills were the top team in the league going into this week. I think we all agreed, and then the Ravens just ran all over them. It seems like they're starting to lock in a little bit in terms of their personnel usage, and just Zach Orr in general, I thought really called a good game as blitzes were getting home. You saw you saw more Nate Wiggins, and they were locked down in man coverage pretty much. You saw all the Trenton Simpson that you wanted to see, like that changes from week one. You had Mackay at left guard and Rosengarten at right tackle, right? That's different than you've seen these first few weeks a little bit. That seemed to work. So they're starting to find, I think, what they're good at, what their identity is. I think they're, you said it, Blaiden, hitting their stride a little bit. With the Bills as banged up as they are, with the Chiefs, getting more and more banged up, with Rashee Rice now probably out for the year. If you're the Ravens, you've got to say we control our own destiny. The Steelers are probably not going to stay the 1 seed forever. They lost today. That's good. Cincinnati's 1-3. The Browns look terrible. We just beat a top team in the AFC. We were a toe away from beating the Chiefs. Like, offensive line starting to lock in, defense starting to look good. Zach Orr, one of the youngest defensive coordinators in the league. Like, I think getting a little bit more confident. They're big time contenders. They're big time contenders, and Derrick Henry will never be washed.
Apparently not, dude.
Derrick Henry breaking off the longest run in Ravens franchise history is completely insane. How is he still moving that fast? I don't even know how many touches he has since high school.
He's just so damn big. I guess it just doesn't matter. He's just it's just different for him. He just doesn't play by regular rules because he's a Hall of Famer. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like you tweeted out something kind of sarcastically, Theo, where you're like, I'm not buying into workload or tread on tires or whatever. Tread off. Or I don't know if you were being sarcastic, but
I wasn't really being sarcastic. Like, where is the at this point?
You see a guy like Dalvin Cook, for instance. You see somebody like that.
Oh, yes.
I think for a lot of guys, there's plenty of examples of, as they get more carries, Ezekiel Elliott, it's like they lose their superpowers. Derrick Henry is just different. Like, it just does not apply to him because it's not that it isn't a thing, in my opinion at least. It's that he is just so great. And honestly, game 1, I was looking, I was like, man, maybe this might be it. No. Now, I will say that Buffalo's linebacker injuries kind of let the Ravens do what they wanted to do. I don't know if they threw the ball past the line of scrimmage 10 times this game because they didn't have to and because they were able to just run at them over and over and over and over. But the fact that you're seeing some success with that, with the Ravens, and that's how you want to play, is a really good thing. You still need to see maybe the downfield passing build out a little bit more in games where the run game is struggling more. But as the season goes on, seeing aspects of the team, change, and you had a new offensive line out there, you made some changes. It's a really good look for them. And for Buffalo, it sucks. Definitely need your linebackers back. But the thing is, the guys that they're missing, they're supposed to get back. It's not that they're out for the entire year in a way that, like the Chiefs' problem with their receivers, it's like, Rice is probably done for the year. Brown is done for the year, I think.
I don't think Brown is done for the year.
No? Okay, I'm sorry, my fault. I'm wrong. Yeah. Well, in that case, I think the Bills can grow and improve on this. This was just a game that needed to be Allen hero ball, and it wasn't. Well, it was, but it wasn't enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a pass, a beautiful one that got dropped by Keon Coleman. I thought that they just kind of it had been the strategy all year against the Bills. Let's play man coverage. Let's test these young guys. This was kind of the first time that they were up for the challenge. And
it's a serious secondary where it's you need to be more than just some guys who can win. I also will say the double pass or the Allen trick play that turned into a fumble, bad call. Bad call when your offense is starting to get a rhythm to throw cute. That one out there. Right, for a defense that's good at forcing mistakes. It was too cute. And maybe that's just me being results biased.
If it had worked, sure, but
but it didn't, so it sucked. They should have done something that worked.
I can't think any of us would even dream of calling that against a defense like Baltimore or Cleveland or Kansas City.
I wouldn't dare.
No. You know who loves a trick play? Bobby Slowick.
Hey.
Texans, we got that Diggs end around.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Turned into a run. Last week we got the throw across the field like that converted, and I remember in the playoff game how many trick plays he ran. I think he's got to be the leader in the clubhouse for like amount of trick plays called since becoming offensive coordinator. But at any rate, that's a different game. Yeah, it was a pretty chill win for the Ravens, honestly. Like Lamar didn't have to do too much. Defense played great. Running game was great. I think if you ran this back later in the year, something different could happen. But Buffalo will need some growth from Coleman or Kincaid, someone to really become Shakir, someone to really become a star. I think Shakir is good where he's at. I think one of Kincaid or Coleman has to take it to another level.
When Allen hit that throw, when he was about to go out of bounds, and he somehow was able to get that to Shakir, I was like, the Bills are going to come back. Like, Allen's going to work some magic. They're going to come back. That throw was absolutely nuts.
I agree.
He had some crazy ones.
But
he's just an epic player.
It sounds like we don't have a whole lot else to say about this one. Yeah, I mean, if we've already hit on the run game, the defense. So, fair enough. I think we can call it for National Podcast Day. You're not allowed to say anything mean to us because it's our day. But thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm going to go to bed, and I assume Matt and Theo are going to do the same thing. And then I'll go edit the podcast, and hopefully it'll be out for you all by the time that you're listening to this. But until next time, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back to recap some of the games that we missed tonight, as well as preview the upcoming week, of course. But until then.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think it's pretty sweet. I think we've got a cool thing going here. We should keep doing it.
We should.
But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the Flippity Flop.